All right, it is 6:30. This is Carol Allen, Vice Chair. Can we call the meeting to order, please? And Ray, could you please do roll call?
I will. Jordan Wittrin.
Present.
Jeffrey One. Jeffrey.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Carol Allen.
Here.
Victoria Rizzo was not feeling well, so she stayed home today.
Okay.
So she's not here. Twyla.
Here.
Danny Stephenson.
Here.
Rich Allen.
Here.
And myself. And we have a quorum.
Okay. What number do we do pledge of allegiance at this meeting?
It's not on the list, but you're in charge. You can
I
do
don't
anything.
see it.
You can do anything you want.
Can we stand up and do pledge of allegiance,
Oh,
please?
yep.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and number 2 is public comment. I don't see anybody in here, but is there anybody online? I see an F, and I see Paul. I don't know who F is.
That would be a Frank Stevens, it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Paul. Did anybody have a comment?
Oh, nothing here.
Okay. All right, so number 3 is the consent agenda, sorry. Attached here is minutes from September 23rd, 2024 meeting. Did anybody have time to read over the minutes? Or have any changes or comments?
Ms. Allen,
Yes.
I approve consent agenda 3.1 minutes for September 23rd, 2024,
Okay.
as presented.
I need a second.
I'll second the motion.
Twyla?
She beat you.
Yep, Twyla. Okay, and all those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. All right, number 4 is discuss patrol habits of Troutdale deputies versus contract. I will hand that over to Ray.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You should have received in your packet a fair amount of information regarding the patrol habits of our 2 districts. As you recall, we have 2 patrol districts in Troutdale. So we have 2 deputies on the road 24/7 protecting the citizens of Troutdale. As I said, that's District 60 and 70. Because of modern technology today, all of those vehicles have a GPS in them that pings on a regular basis. If they're traveling fast, the pings are farther apart. If they're stationary, the pings, of course, are closer. I got a hold of 911, who tracks all this data, because that's how they know where the police cars are. And I had them send me 5 random days for each day of the week. That makes sense? At the top left, you'll see attached to the agenda, the packet, you will see little maps. It works better if I do 11 by 14, but it wouldn't have folded well in your pack. So if you electronically, you can get it online. But when you look at where, these are just our 2 deputies, and I say "are" because that's what we signed the contract for, was to have 2 deputies on the road in Troutdale. You will notice 2 things about these GPS maps. One is, and if you take a yellow highlight marker, which is I've done, and I've highlighted the city of Troutdale city limits, it becomes much more stark than this, but you will see that our deputies are spending a lot of time other places. If you look at the other chart that I attached from the 4th quarter of 2023, it tells you how many hours of their 10-hour shift do our district deputies spend in the city. It went, I think, from a low of 2.8 hours in one graveyard shift, all the way up to, what was that? All the way up to 6.8 during a graveyard shift. The average looks to be about deputies spend 50 to 60% of their time within the city limits of Troutdale. And what I wanted the maps for is I want to say, well, where the heck are they going? And as you can see, they're spending a heck of a lot of time in Wood Village, Fairview, and other areas of East County and South County. You look at a couple of these different days and you're going, what were they doing? Or Corbett, why did they go up to Corbett? What became apparent, and I haven't had a chance for them to answer this, I pointed this out to the sheriff last week. She said, I'll look into it. That's all I got out of it. But what it seems to me is that our two deputies are responding to normal Multnomah County calls regardless of where they are out in East County. They're not really Troutdale police comparable to the Troutdale police. They're just being sent out to calls. And so we wonder, of course, the question is, why are we paying their full-time salaries if they're spending half their time somewhere else? Now, in our contract, and the reason I gave you the March 3rd, 2015 minutes was to read through the presentation, the discussion. If you can't tell from the written word, Dave Ribma and Sheriff Stanton kind of got into it a little bit. You could kind of tell the way Stanton's attitude wasn't really friendly to Dave. And I also have another minutes, Paul Wilcox, thank you, Paul. Paul sent me another one later that I haven't had a chance to copy yet or really read through, but one from a couple weeks later where they actually voted to adopt it on the 4-3 vote. So it's interesting to go back and see what we were telling them we wanted and what Sheriff Stanton represented to our city as to what these patrol deputies would be. And then I gave you a copy of the contract? I may have, you have a copy of the contract, I know, before from discussions, and I went through and I highlighted, where did I put it? The kind of the relevant paragraph, which says is law enforcement services. For the term of this agreement, MCSO will operate under the philosophy of a municipal police department as to branding and will provide the police services to the city as set forth in 4.1 to 4.3 below. The police personnel assigned to the city patrol districts will respond to calls for service within the city that meet or reduce the response time specified in Appendix A. And so it's like this, they respond to calls in Troutdale, right? That's the first one. And then to calls outside the city in accordance with existing mutual support agreements. So it says that the only thing our two deputy, I'm reading, is the only thing our deputies should be doing is responding to calls in Troutdale and going outside of Troutdale if Gresham has a violent offender and they have to go back up Gresham. City of Portland, state cops out in 84. I mean, that's what those mutual support agreements are for, is that they'll go back up another agency if they need to. And those are the only time that they should be leaving our city. But it appears that they are spending, like I said, half their time outside the city just responding to regular calls. If you read down and read the rest of paragraph 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3, it does nothing to dissuade us from that belief of what was in the preamble, that they're supposed to be here unless they're called out on a mutual support agreement matter. And I think from the very beginning, nobody told 911 that our two district deputies are not eligible for just normal Multnomah County Sheriff calls. They have to go somewhere else. Because I've talked to 4 police chiefs of municipalities. One was Dave Nelson, who used to be our chief and our city manager back in the 2000 aughts. And I spoke with the chief of another city, and 5. And I also spoke to with the head administrative person overseeing Happy Valley's relationship with Clackamas County Sheriff, and 2 other cities. And I don't have the actual memo from my assistant yet, but all of them agreed that you should expect your city police, they're in the city 80 to 90% of the time. Not 100% because they have to take people to jail occasionally. They have to respond to the mutual support agreements. But a city police department should be on the road within your city 80 to 90% of a person's shift. And that expectation clearly is not met within the actual behavior of our patrol deputies. So it's an issue that we have to deal with. So that's something that we've talked about among the contract subgroup. So anyway, any comments, questions? You have to talk to your wife when you raise your hand.
Oh, Rich.
All right, so I understand what you're saying, like going to the courthouse. When I look at the map, right?
Yeah,
The courthouse that's over off of Stark and the courthouse over in Portland. I understand that. One word of caution, because we, as you look at the minutes, we do have a negotiating team, which is yourself, Ed, Jeff, Jordan, and Tanny. So one word of caution is that I was on the negotiating committee back on the original contract. And the reason why I ended up voting against it in the term, when the vote came, even though I was one of the negotiators, is because once it was known that there were 4 counselors that were going to go for the deal, all negotiations just fell apart. And so I'd like to encourage our negotiating team that they do not say which way they're leaning, one way or the other, because that just totally messes up any kind of negotiation. And so,
and that's an agenda item on
and
the
it certainly wasn't that, I have anything against the sheriffs. I'm actually a strong police supporter, sheriff supporter. It was just the way it went down, the way it came about, that I was not happy with.
Yeah, interesting. If you read 4.1, the first sentence right below that paragraph about in the city, response times and mutual support agreements, the assigned MCSO personnel will provide police and related services within the incorporated boundaries of the city.
Yeah.
So another place that.
So the reason why I bring this up is during the negotiations, we were trying to shore up some of these holes that we had, right?
Right.
And once they had the votes, it wasn't possible.
Yeah, and that's important to remember. Oh,
Toilets.
Yes, I was just wondering, and looking at this map, I'm just trying to figure out I can see going downtown to the jail and everything, but any idea what we're doing over the 205 bridge all the time?
well, you got to remember that deputies take their cars home.
Okay, so this.
So I'm thinking
Okay,
we may have somebody that lives in Vancouver. I'm going to give them that. That seems like a likely.
okay, so this is
And what?
all travel, not
Right.
just during.
We don't have the same 2 deputies all the time on all 3 shifts, so it's 6 deputies. We have a couple of them that are like 60 or 70% of their shifts occur there. So when you see somebody going to Clackamas County or going across the 205 bridge, that may be simply them heading home. Even though I'd be, yeah, it might be, because we don't have a broader map to know where they may be going. But you look at, you can pick out one, like I'm just looking at Sunday, February 11th, and I see somebody going all the way down to Division and going all the way out up south of Corbett and is making a loop out there in Clackamas County, then coming back. I mean, if you look at Sunday, February 11th, you see 2 different dot sets, at least 2, I don't know how they overlap, going up into Corbett or South Corbett. And this is way outside the state limits of Troutdale. Like I said, if you take it and you highlight where the city limits are, it kind of jumps out at you even more. The second thing to look at, just glancing through any of them, 3 or 4 of them, look at them. In terms of where those dots go, what jumps out at you?
It feels like, I'm sorry, you're asking everybody?
Well, if you raise your hand, maybe your wife will call on you.
Rich.
It feels like you have Wood Village and Fairview that's underserved. And they're needing a lot of help in dispatching over there.
From us.
Yeah,
There's
like their need is not being met.
I always do this, and maybe I'm being mean, but there's something else there that jumped out at me the first time I started looking at these maps. What do the citizens have, what have they said for years about law enforcement services driving? What's the one thing people say? Oh, come on, you
Oh,
guys.
we should know this.
Right.
They're not in the
We just don't see the cops in our neighborhood anymore,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Look at these maps. There are some shifts, they don't even go into most of the neighborhoods other than just one line of dots. After map, after map, after map.
You're
They are-
suggesting our citizens are not crazy?
Yes, I'm suggesting that. It's not conclusive, it wasn't a, survey. But I look at some of these, whether it's Sandy Palisades, Sweetbriar, in many of these maps, there's no dots anywhere in our primary residential areas. And I'm going, what the heck? I mean, I look here, it's Saturday, August, was it 3rd or 8th? My eyesight's bad. But I'm going, in those 2 shifts that whole day, no dots went into any of our primary residential home neighborhoods.
Tammy?
Thank you, Ms. Allen. A couple of things. One, Rich made the comment, not to tip your hand. And I am part of that group. But I've just got to say, I'm not tipping my hand, but I am a little angry. Because when I look at this, and Ray, you said sometimes they're going to the jail, and I get that, that's downtown, but when I look at these maps, frankly, I see that, but then are they going to the jail in Camas? Are they going to the Snake River Jail? Are they going to Oregon City's jail? Or are they going downtown?
Right.
I mean, these things are just all over the place. And what concerns me as a citizen is if we had a shooter or armed robbery or something where we really needed people, would we even have the ability to get them there in time when they're so far away?
Now, we do have the whole patrol division out of this building, and presumably there would be other deputies nearby, but you're right. I mean,
No.
here's one where they're going all the way down to, Cascade Station. Somebody went down there, looped around and came back again.
No, and there might be people in the building, but I'll just say this. One night after a planning commission meeting, there was a woman and a man in the parking lot. I know this is probably an isolated situation. She'd been abused, beaten, was trying to get away from the guy. He was grabbing a hold of her. We go out there and, do you need help? Yes, I need help. Come running in here, and this is back in the day when it was still opened late, before we went to, COVID hours here. But went in and said, hey, need some help out here. Got a woman in trouble. The response was call 911.
Yeah, I've heard this before. They don't want to bother anybody here.
Yeah,
I guess part of it, maybe they want it to go through the system regularly and dispatch properly, I guess, to them. But yeah, that's, Troutdale police officer, if it was in the building.
Would have been out the door.
Would have marched right out there to it and taken care of it. I have no doubt that they would have.
I'm just saying, so it tells me I can't totally count on the people that are here
Yeah.
because they might be too busy.
Yeah, so Madam Chair, the reason we're going over this is because the contract subgroup has gone over this, and this has, without saying too much about where we think we're headed in negotiations, is what I'll mention later. This weighs heavily in terms of what we think the city should be asking for in terms of law enforcement services, and some additional, because I know Counselor One has been a big advocate for, we got to have good metrics about what they're doing. And I think the original contract said enough that we shouldn't have this problem now, but the next contract will definitely have to say what our expectations are about, they're not available for just normal calls for the sheriff's office, just as if they were the Troutdale Police Department, it's not available for just 911 dispatch calls generally in Multnomah County.
Clarification.
Rich?
I think the jail's off of 122nd. So I think where you're really going is the courthouses.
There's a Justice Center downtown jail, and then there's the more long-term housing over there, 122nd.
Oh, okay.
Which is why there may be somebody over by Cascade Station. They had to go over there to that one.
Oh, all right. That helps. Thank you.
So yeah, they have 2 jails in town.
Oh. Yes?
Rich, when it comes to the jail, everybody gets booked in downtown and then gets moved to Inverness.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank
Yeah, they
you.
get processed downtown and then they go out there. So that's a question to ask is why would a deputy go to Inverness directly and then come back? There might have been a reason. It might have been a meeting that they had.
Yeah.
Who knows? You know, that kind of an occasional thing.
Do you
is
think
probably,
they go to Snake River too?
Yeah.
Is
Well-
GPS by officer or by car?
Well, by the car, but since they all have their own
Yeah.
car, it is by officer and by car.
All right.
But what I asked for 911 is I just want the GPS data for who is ever patrolling District 60 and 70.
Right.
Is all and you know, not that I'm accusing anybody of anything, but 911 is like Switzerland. They don't care. Here's your data. Here you go. Because we give them, what, $600,000 a year? The citizens do? To be able to call 911. That's why she wanted you to call 911. She wanted you to get your money's worth.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way, so
You
thank
should.
you.
So, those are 2 big issues that we're gonna be looking at in terms of how we go back to the sheriff's office regarding our FTE, and I'm kind of blending into, you know, item number 5, but it's gonna factor into what we're going to be discussing about FTE and how we want that FTE to be able to be dispatched or to be able to be accountable to the citizens of Troutdale and what's going on. So, anyway, I just wanted you to see what I see, because if you look at, I have here, and people online can only see it, so I'll hold it up. This is the map of what their districts are. As far as I can tell, the sheriff's office has a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 districts. They have a different color for Wood Village, but I don't know if that one officer from Fairview and Wood Village will do the same or not. But they have 7 or 8 districts, and so City of Troutdale is paying for 25% or more of the total deputies on the road for the sheriff's office at any given time. That's why they're covering a lot of other calls, because they are needed. Anyway, that's all I have to report on those facts.
Chair.
Twyla?
I am frankly blown away about the GPS data and just how they're on the main
Yeah.
byways. And in my head, I'm trying to explain, is there anything that could explain why they're not in the communities? Because it just feels kind of unreal in looking at this. And the only thing I can come up with possibly is the GPS. Did they talk about how often they ping them? I mean, I'm sure we would see more people in the neighborhood, even if it was like every 10 minutes, but it's just very striking.
Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but just seeing how few dots there are in the neighborhoods versus the main drag, Stark, Troutdale Road, you know, Halsey, I-84. I mean, a couple of the maps, it's like, crap, it looks like they spent all day just cruising up and down 84.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so thick, it's basically a blue line. That's what you look at, but like I said, I just look to see that in some neighborhoods during some shifts, a lot of shifts, there just isn't any car going into that neighborhood at all.
Most of them, yes.
And what I would like to see is that, you know, if you're directing them, they should be going through the neighborhoods, talking to people in the neighborhoods. It's called community policing, but from these maps, it doesn't seem like community policing is part of the package. And like I said, they haven't defended themselves against what appears to be going on, so I'll give that caveat. They haven't had a chance to respond. It's like anytime in a trial, when you listen to one side, you go, oh yeah, they're right, they should win. Then you listen to the other side and you're like, oh, hadn't thought about that, didn't know that, so maybe it's not so easy. So I'm giving them that maybe it's not so easy or obvious as it looks, but we haven't asked them yet.
Rich?
So I'm aware that if our people in Troutdale wanted more police support than, say, maybe some of the other cities wanted, right? And we were willing to pay for more police support, like, I felt like if we did the community officers and so forth and paid for more support, we would be able to utilize that in our town. But there currently doesn't seem to be a way to actually pay for more and get more. And I'm just wondering, have you or other members of the committee been thinking about how do we do a contract that ensures that if we want extra, we actually get extra?
Well, that's, the devil's in the details, they say, that's part of the contract. And one of the things oh gosh, I just thought about this too. We've assumed this, but I should talk to 911 and say, if these patrol deputies in these districts are designated, they don't get sent to normal Multnomah County calls, I would assume that they would not be on the board for them to use for that. Because they did it before for Troutdale police cars. They do it right now for Gresham police cars. They only dispatch them to calls in the city of Gresham.
Right.
So
Right.
we should have the same with our districts. You know, we're not sure how many districts we really want as opposed to, because thinking back now, we may want to change our ratio of more resource deputies that are simply devoted to only be in Troutdale, and then maybe less patrol districts.
Well, I do believe that our area, because of choices we've made, has become more dangerous. And so I do like the idea of officers being able to support each other when they're in a bad situation, right? And support each other quickly. So it'd be nice to have the number of officers you want, but whether they're traveling too near each other, that's fine with me. If it means that the officers are safer and can go home at night, right?
Yeah, and if they wanted to.
So I don't necessarily need them in the north and the south, but if they are sticking together, move around.
Yeah, and I also say that, would say that if an officer in Fairview District needs a backup, should he wait for the Savi's Island or the Maywood Park person to come over to him, or the person across the street in Troutdale, come over to help him? Well, you could argue that's fine, but we shouldn't be paying 100% for that deputy if you're gonna use them for just normal deputy calls in
Right,
other
if you see a
jurisdictions.
pattern of behavior,
Yeah.
that means that area is underserved and actually needs more.
Right, and so.
That city pays for it,
Yeah,
not
either
us.
they don't, or we need a discount on what we're paying to reflect what we're really getting.
Right,
And this was the problem.
because
That time-
technically, we're not allowed to pay for other cities.
Right, they're utilizing what our citizens are paying for law enforcement.
Right.
Because our city police officers would not have gone there for routine calls. So,
Well, you look at like Wood Village, they don't pay for patrol, and look at the strength of the lines
Yeah.
on 223rd and 238th. Compared to a lot of the streets in Troutdale.
yeah. So we talked about that, the contract, again, I'm blending over to 5, Madam Chair, is that we talked about this on Friday at the contract subgroup meeting.
Any other comments?
I am gonna get, just to let you know, I'd be curious to know if anybody has any suggestions for any more data they need. I only have the 1 quarter for last year for that percentage, and I've already asked for the other full 2022, 2023. I figured full 2 years of that percentages would be enough to show a pattern. I'm gonna get that, and I'm just curious if there's anything else any other data.
I'm aware one could say, well, they're using the main streets to get around, right? If you're going from South Troutdale to North Troutdale.
Well, how about just being in
But do you
Troutdale?
see it going through the neighborhoods, right? That is a big one, so how detailed the data is important.
Yeah,
And this is Carol, so when I look at these, I mean, they're not in they're not. When people say, I'm not seeing them in my neighborhood, they're not.
Not like they were used to, right?
No.
and I guess the one of the big things for me is, sorry,
Go ahead. Ken.
is why.
Yeah,
Right. I would agree.
When I read the contract and I look at the maps, and as long as it took to get this stuff, Ray, when you asked them for it,
Yeah,
and they didn't give it to you, they know all of this.
presumably.
And it's kind of like locking your kid in the basement and not feeding him because you can.
Now, 911 was relatively fast getting me this stuff, all these
You
maps.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like they know that this is going on and they're just turning and not addressing it.
That's what management does, right? Keep track of what's going on. So I would support your statement.
It's just disappointing is all.
well, this is Carol. So I did talk to one of the deputies because she had seen what Robbie Cantrell had written down next door. And it really has some of them pretty upset. Because when I talked with her, she looked at this, or she kept telling me they're around. I mean, they do their paperwork, they get called, they don't finish their paperwork, they get called, and then they have to come back and they do their paperwork. I mean, sometimes they're really busy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Right, so I
definitely.
mean, she is swamped, and, I mean, she's willing to come and answer questions as a deputy, right? Are they deputies?
Yeah,
They're deputies, right?
if we have, I don't want to put them in that situation.
either, but
I'd
I'm
rather
telling-
have
I don't
Captain
either,
Beva.
but she volunteered.
Yeah.
If we had any questions, I said that I would let you know that she
Yeah.
volunteered to come if we had any questions from their point of
Yeah.
view. But, I mean, looking at the map, I mean, definitely they're not here.
Right, it's
Yeah.
not, has no indictment of the deputies.
Not at all.
Because they're getting direction from above them.
Correct.
And they're getting dispatched from above them. I don't blame any of the patrol deputies at all for any of this
Oh,
stuff we
no.
may be unhappy with. I mean, they're all wonderful people. I've always liked all my interactions with them. They're great.
Yeah.
I'm friends with some of them, just to let you know, but.
Well, if you wouldn't drive so fast and get those tickets, you would get along better with
Yeah,
them.
But, yeah, and I hear what they go through. This is more of a management thing. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not the performance or desire of the officers to take care of problems, right? It's just, what do we want? What do we want to pay for, and are we getting what we're paying for? So it's a management thing.
completely.
Yeah, so, all right, I'll get some more data on this
Anyone
issue.
online? Nope. Jeffrey? All right. Number 5, update on police contract negotiations.
Great. The subgroup met just last Friday and talked about strategies and approach. That was our second meeting. One of the things that we decided was it's not really practical to carry on active negotiations with the county with all 5 of us having to get together. I mean, it's just very cumbersome. And second of all, not only the scheduling, but also if you got 5 people in a room with 4 or 5 people on the other side, it's a lot of crosstalk and a lot of not very pointed discussion. And so what the group decided is that Ed and I will lead and be actually the face of Troutdale in the negotiations when we go to the sheriff's office, but with close coordination with the whole subgroup about what we're doing. It's very similar to what an attorney does all the time. His client gives him authority to do A, B, and C, and he goes and negotiates, and he knows he can only negotiate A, B, or C, and he's got to go back and get approval from his client to agree to anything. So that's the way we would approach it with them. And so Ed and I are meeting next week on Wednesday afternoon to start formulating our strategy. And then we set a meeting, didn't we, after that?
Yes.
Yes, we did. And then once we develop our strategy for going to the sheriff's office, then we will meet with the subgroup and go over with them, make sure everybody's on the same page, and then we'll go meet with the sheriff's office. And no, I'm not going to tell you what our strategy is. In case somebody from the sheriff's office is watching. So, anyway. Anyway, so that's what's going on with the negotiation. So I would assume that somewhere toward the end of November, we'll have our first meeting with the sheriff's office about here's our concerns, here's our needs, here's our wants, here's what it looks like to us. What are we missing? Are we wrong? The data is the data, so.
And that's with all of you or just the two of you?
Just the two of us. So essentially, Ed and I they'll come out here, or we'll go down to Hawthorne, Fifth and Hawthorne, where the main office is, because the last time they came out back in April, when we talked about the next contract, they had 4 people in my office up there. So they have a group of people that are involved in this negotiation, so. The other thing that we thought was probably important to do, and this is probably not something that I don't think is necessary, we should hide at all, is that we need to brief our new county commissioner. Nothing against Lori Stegman, but when this is going to be negotiated and this is going to be signed, it has to be approved by the county commission. So we need to keep Vince informed, because he's going to be our new county commissioner, because that's his job, is to advocate for us. So that's also something we'll bring into the mix too. So, and if any of you individually, not to discuss it, but want me to update you exactly on any negotiation details that we don't necessarily want to talk about in public meeting, and I'm not saying that we don't want the public to know, but under the public meeting law, contract negotiations are allowed to be non-public meeting and non-disclosed, and so I want to make very clear, this is not trying to hide anything from anybody, but the law says is that when you're in contract negotiations, you don't want the other side in a public meeting to be told, here's what we're willing to give you, and here's what our authority is. And they go, oh, great, just give it to me now. There's no negotiating. It's just like, oh, okay. So that's one of the reasons the law says we don't have to disclose those things. At the time of the contract and discussion of the contract, of course, that's all in the public record, but getting to that form.
I appreciate you saying that, because we're here to represent the citizens of Troutdale, and we have to meet our obligation.
That's why if anybody wants.
Tipping our hand in any way, shape, or form is bad.
Well, and that's what you said happened before, is when 4 of them were already on board, let's do it regardless of the negotiations. It was like, okay,
Yeah, that was
let's
it.
just roll
That
over
was
and
the
sign
end
on
of
the
it.
dotted line.
Yeah.
I was there, it was over.
Yeah.
It was not a fine moment for us.
If you hadn't had a chance to read all the minutes, if it's black and white, there's no tonal quality of how people say things, but you read through that and you're going, it was funny, one line in there from Dave Ritma was, okay, how do I get more when I pay less? Something's wrong here. Oh, no, they sure does, but
Read the one from the Sam Cox building.
there was a,
Yeah.
Sam Cox, when we had our meeting originally at the Sam Cox building.
oh.
That was the big one.
That was the big one, there was a lot of people there, and people didn't feel like they had a place to talk. And I remember wanting to make sure people had a voice, but that was an issue then. And so I think it's really important for the citizens that we're really open, and that what happened in the past, although it's in the past, but it does bear some weight on the future when you make decisions, right? So people don't want to be burned twice. And so they really want us to be black and white.
These minutes are great, but these are from the work session.
Right, and Paul gave me the, I think, March 24th. Paul, you can nod your head. If it was March 24th of 2015, he's nodding his head. I have that, but I wasn't able to download it
Yeah.
and copy it yet, so I'll get that to you also.
That one's a little friskier.
Friskier.
Rich?
Yeah, Ray, I wanted you to be aware, when you read the minutes, you'll see where I had a concern about checks and balances. And what do you do when an agency goes bad, right? I knew this in the military. Sometimes, not everybody who's supposed to be good is good, and not everybody is as bad as you think, right? People are people, right? What do you do when an agency goes bad? And I had some concern about what happens when Monoma County does Gresham and Troutdale and Fairview and Wood Village and Portland. I think they're always going to be on their own, but there's not much balance checks and balances that way. However, I did learn, because there were some various threats going on at that time, that there were other agencies that did step in to help. And so I no longer have that concern, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Now it's just a matter of, they're all good officers. Can we get the citizens of Troutdale the protection that they want and that they're willing to pay for?
The other thing also too, we have been discussing with the other two cities several options to, if we decide to disengage ourselves from the Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. We've discussed Troutdale, because you've seen that study where it's $5.7 million that the city wanted to recreate the Troutdale Police Department, and then a $2 or $3 million startup bill. But exploring that if all three cities combine what they're paying the sheriff's office now, we should be able to have a big enough police department to patrol all three cities at no more than we're paying now. Second of all, there's also the possibility of looking at a police special district in the three cities, so that it's created through just like we talked about fire districts, this is a separate one, and we have an ability to sell to the citizens that we get a control. The three cities get to control their own, we work together, there's a board. So that's a possibility too, that we are actively exploring both those things, because as we talk about standard negotiating rules, is you gotta have other options. It's we don't wanna have what's in the contract law is called a contract of adhesion. A contract of adhesion, when you get to closing for your house, and they say, all right, if you want your house, you have to sign all these documents. You don't even read them. You say, if I want the house, well, I guess I have to sign them. I don't really care what's in them. I'll take what you give me. It's just, and we can't be that way with the sheriff's office. We have to have a legitimate and credible another option. I mean, it take a couple of years. The citizens would have to approve money for a startup. They'd have to approve either a district. So we'd have to have some help from the citizens to approve that. But you guys are citizens. There's a lot of attraction. It'll cost them more potentially in terms of if there's a police district, but it becomes our police force again.
Well,
Anyway, that's something that we're still exploring that one, because that's gotta be something we keep active.
Okay.
Gotta know your options.
and whether it's a police district or not, I think to ask the citizens to cough up anything more, I think we have to be able to say, this is what you're gonna get, and this is why it's better than what you have today.
Right.
And I think in the current model, it's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
But you're right, if we don't have options, then you end up negotiating with yourself and you end up in a bad position.
I would agree.
Anyway,
Well said.
so
Hold on, Jordan.
Yeah, have we reached out to Gresham yet to start the process of getting a bid from them as well, Ray?
yes, I sent it to them and I've heard crickets. I'll follow up, because the last I heard, the police chief, he said he's gonna talk to the city manager.
Okay,
And
thank you. I just want to make sure that we have
On my
as
list.
many options as possible.
yeah, I'll follow up with Chief Goldberg.
This Carol, I also think that too, if we're looking at like tax base with home forwardcoming and then some other like low income, they don't pay a lot of taxes.
They don't pay tax.
And if they pay tax, I mean, it's just low taxes, we gotta look at that too, because we're not gonna have a whole, just because people are moving doesn't mean they're gonna pay the higher tax.
Yeah, Fox Ridge will. The Fox Ridge will on Halsey, the 165 unit that just opened up this fall.
Okay.
The one there on Halsey, yeah. And a couple of council members went on a tour, our battery farm, which is probably $100 million valued asset, is coming online at the end of this year, but they're in a 3-year enterprise zone deferral.
And there's
Is it
different
5?
talk about that.
Isn't it 5?
No, they went to 3.
Okay.
3 to 5.
Yeah, if they went 5, they'd have to pay us the community service fee. But they're not, they're going to straight 3. Because they hired one person.
Tyler, were we at one of the meetings that they were talking about going to 5? Like Amazon was gonna go to. I
Yeah,
was at
Amazon, this
something.
is the first year Amazon went the 5-year.
Okay,
But the battery farm is only doing the 3-year.
okay.
Yeah, Amazon kicks in like an additional,
900 and some $1,000 in property tax.
yeah, it's like 2.8 million to the county each year.
Yeah, so it seems like that the
They're
battery
taxed.
farm should kick to the city about $400,000 in rough numbers, but we won't see it till the 28-29 budget year.
I know this is off topic, but it would be great if we didn't spend that this year. We waited a while before we spent the money.
Okay, any other comments on number 5? All right, number 6.
Okay, fire, we're going to fire.
Fire.
All right, did anybody get a chance to read the 2 articles in the last 2 weeks in the Outlook? I got copies of them if you haven't. I sent the first one to the council, and then I should take this with me. And I didn't send the one from the other day, so I'll stand right here with the microphone and hand them out to, yeah, the one on October 4th, and then there was one last week on October 22nd. And the first one was Gresham had talked to the Outlook. The Outlook had talked to Gresham about the fire contract. And then Chris Kaiser, the reporter on the Outlook, says, well, I'm gonna do an article on this, Ray, so what do you have to say about it? And so I gave him some comments. He talked to Greg Dirks, the city manager over at Wood Village also. And I'll suffice to say that Gresham thought we were not neighborly enough. Well, I've sent them the Outlook, the memo that I did for the 3 cities about all the reasons why we're not an equal shareholder in the Gresham Fire Department, because we have no say or control over anything they do. Zero, nada. So we don't get the same fire department that Gresham does. Gresham can decide, quality of, the type of service, the service models, who's the chief and all the kind of things, and we just have to take what they are, we're a customer. The second thing is as you already know and you'll see in the article, routinely for the last 2 years, I checked, I didn't go all the way back, we get response times that are 40, 45 seconds slower than the citizens of Gresham. It's not the, as you see, what was so funny is if you look at the second article, the union went, oh, we're wonderful, we shouldn't be attacked, and it's pretty funny because I never attacked the line firemen, they're great. And I say, if you look at the first article, I said, we have great respect for the quality service provided by Gresham Fire, but financially we can't continue to afford that level of service without a fire district. They're wonderful people. And so, but we're not getting the same thing as Gresham. And Gresham, I think for at least, I think it was May of 2023 and November of 2023, 2 council meetings, City of Gresham was talking about those 3 cities got to pay more, they got to pay more. And so when I pushed back, Gresham didn't like it. So you can read the articles, that's what's going on. And as we mentioned before, we love the firefighters. Firefighters Union is great. They would be a great supporter. They already are a great supporter of doing a fire district out here. So anyway, so those are the articles out there. Then we also, and even though you got a ton of paper for today's meeting, I should have given you more, and I'm going to give it to you now, is that we did get a letter from Gresham saying what they want to do on the next contract. So we have received that from them. It is a letter from the city manager, Eric Schmidt. And then he had like 5 or 6 charts of information, and I'll have, for those of you in video land, I will have Sarah post these on the meeting minutes for this. So I'm gonna hand out that letter and those to you. The bottom line is the city of Gresham says in theory we should be paying the exact same per capita cost as the citizens of Gresham pay based on general population. And as you will see from page 3 or 4 of this next document, that means that Gresham is saying up front that our annual cost for fire, instead of $2.8 million, should be $4.3 million. Gresham is claiming a $1.5 million increase in our fire services for next year, which is a 50% increase in our cost for fire service. Now again, that assumes that we should be paying the exact same as a Gresham resident pays. So that's for you to read through, and as I told those in video land, I'll get Sarah to post those online also.
Would any of their budget dollars be used for capital
That's what I was gonna mention too.
No,
for the fire? Any of Gresham's budget dollars? Or ours or anything?
their budget is available online.
Okay,
I haven't looked at it to know what's in there, what they've added in there for capital. When it comes, because they might, because they are rebuilding their training center, the tower down there, and they got $500,000 from the state of Oregon to help out with that. And I think the $500,000, the other one is the second half of that, because it's like $1 million is coming out of their budget. But the other problem is that the Troutdale Fire Station isn't owned by Gresham, it's owned by Fire District 10
but I mean, like,
and leased.
of the 29 million that Gresham pays, I mean, are they buying any equipment?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Every year they buy trucks and ladder trucks and
So
tanker
we
trucks.
would we be in the same pool with that? Would we own part of that? Or would we just be a service?
No, what are you talking about? The title says City of Gresham on those cars.
I think, I think what's being pointed out is not only do we not
Yeah.
get the same level of service, but we're like a leasee, right?
Right.
Except we don't even have a buyout options. We have actually zero in capital being built up.
Right, we
And-
don't have those
Right.
vehicles.
And that's a big deal.
But that's good to possibly back that out of the cost. The other thing that, not only is the response time, but there's something in the law, when you value things, you have what's called a minority discount. If Rich and I own a business, and Rich owns 60 shares and I own 40 shares, are my 40 shares worth the same per share as Rich's 60 shares? The law says no, because I have no ability at 40 shares, 40%, to be able to control anything with the business. And so you get a minority discount, because if you don't have controlling interest in a business, the shares are worth less. And so the argument is that since we don't have the right to control anything at Gresham Fire, we shouldn't be paying, our interest in their budget should be lessened. And I've experienced this for the first time the other day. I put in a search on Google just to find an easy definition of what minority discount is. And I've never seen this before, is that, when they pop up the paragraph to kind of answer your question at the beginning, it clearly said it was AI that was giving me the first answer.
Yeah, that's another very good point. We
So-
don't control the decision. We have no say in it.
Right, the service model, how many firemen go on a truck, who the fire chief is, what the union contract is, what the salaries they pay them. So it's like, here's our budget. You may not like the decisions we made, and maybe we were foolish, but you're gonna have to pay your share of them. And so that's why our argument is. And so we have a meeting, Craig Dirks and I met on Monday to talk about where we're headed next on our contract negotiations, where we're gonna go, because city managers met a week ago Monday to start talking about this and this letter. At this point, as you may be aware, Fairview's in transition to their city manager. Pete Boyle, who's been their interim, is fast fading away, and Nathan George, their new city manager, I don't think is gonna be on board till the end of November, 1st of December, something like that. So at this point, we're kind of taking the lead, Greg and I, on this approach. I am communicating with Mayor Keith at Fairview, so that they're also in the loops, they're not cut out of the discussions. So we are meeting, the 4 city managers with Gresham are meeting next Thursday. And Greg and I, this isn't, it's obviously not a secret since we talked about it, but Greg and I agreed, we need to find out from Gresham, are they willing to acknowledge that we aren't getting the same control or service that citizens of Gresham, So how do they justify us paying the same per capita as City of Gresham? The third thing is a good thing, do you want a homework assignment, Tanny? See how much of their budget is capital? If you could do that, that would be a third argument to say is that you're buying stuff you own. Sure, it's needed for the service, but we don't own it.
Yeah, so equipment is a depreciating asset,
Yeah.
but it's still an asset.
It's still an
It
asset.
has value. Land that these stations sit on, that's an appreciating asset,
Right.
that we don't get any of that appreciation.
Or the
So-
appreciation.
In a divorce, we walk out with nothing, our bags are empty.
Yeah, I know. So that's the process we're working on. So what Greg and I talked about is that after we meet with the four city managers, meet with Gresham next Thursday, week from this Thursday, then is when we'll probably go back to the three mayors and kind of get a feel for them. But we need to have from Gresham to kind of find out, do we have a basis for saying, okay, we'll back off of the per head count? And then the issue from there is deciding out, well, what is that worth that we don't have those things? Because controls never, they can't give us control. It's the City of Gresham Police Department. The city council is not gonna give us any say for real over anything.
Surely they're aware of business and business negotiations, aren't they?
Yeah,
Or does that get lost in government?
I don't know what they know. The problem is it's a discussion that's hard for them to have because they could have 3 new council members. And so same as us, we could have 3 to 5 new council members. And so
And
they're
they may
kind of,
know nothing about
yeah, they're kind of
service
laying
and-
low now. The other thing too is that they're not willing to commit to even discussing a fire district yet. They want to deal with the contract first. And I explained to them that, well, they are kind of in the same discussion. You can't separate the two because just hypothetically, if Troutdale, Footwood Village and Fairview was going to settle a contract for more than we wanted to spend, or Gresham settled the contract with us for less than they wanted us to pay, if we knew that it was only a short term, 3 to 5 years, and we were all going to work together to pursue a fire district, it might be easier to swallow a short-term disadvantage to the 3 cities or the city of Gresham, however it worked, either way. If that's not at least a discussion down the road. So that's what we're trying to get them to acknowledge, that we need to have that answer. They're waiting for their economic study, which is supposed to be any day now, to let them know how would it work to form a fire district and transfer their fire department. So they're waiting on that before they can even discuss it. So they should have a work session in the next couple of weeks where they have that. Now, try to remember, if I remember to let you know when I find out when that date is, I'll let you know so you can watch, or at least get online and watch the video of their work session when they discuss the report. It'd be interesting to see what they're saying. So those are all the issues that are germinating right now in terms of the fire contract.
Well, Ms. Carroll, I mean, I even see the population. I mean, Gresham's, according to internet, Gresham has 109,000 people versus Troutdale at 16,000 and some odd. 16,690 according to the internet for Troutdale, and 109,423 in Gresham. So I have a problem with paying what Gresham pays when we only have.
Yeah, if you go to the third page, of this document, it uses for comparison 117,000 for Gresham, 17,000 for Troutdale, 10,600 for Fairview, and 5,000 for Wood Village. Usually, we kind of like to lean toward using the PSU population numbers. They're usually more accurate than the census
Oh,
data
perfect, okay.
numbers. So anyway, just more data to look at on the fire.
Just a sanity check. Is Jeffrey Wan getting a chance to speak if he wants to? Because I haven't heard from him yet. Are you
Yeah,
good?
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here. I'm good. I'm just listening right now. You guys are all good. Thank you, though.
Have an opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Rich.
Any comments about fire?
Are they gonna disclose their study for Gresham just as soon as they get it, are they gonna hang on to it?
They're going to hang on to it until their council reviews it. So that's why I mentioned that as soon as I see that their work session is gonna be talking about it, I'll let you know, because they're not gonna give it to the 3 cities before their council sees it.
Gotcha.
At least that's what I was told, and I understand why.
And that'll happen after the election.
Well, it was supposed to happen by the middle of October, and then they said, oh, it'll be a couple weeks longer, because we wanted to fine tune some of the stuff with the report, and so a couple weeks, and so I sent their city manager an email today going, hey, just checking in to find out if you have any idea when your report's gonna be done, because I also was today, the 3 cities hired Tiberius to do an economic study for us about a fire district, and so I need to bug them, because I haven't heard where our final is. We already got a draft of it, but I don't have the final yet, so I figured I might as well bug them since I was bugging Tiberius too. So as soon as we get that information, the economic study, we'll get it to this group for our own, just so you'll know. It's going on the fire district side.
Rich?
Ray, just a question for you. Over this issue, do you get a chance to talk to Mayor Stovall? And the reason why I ask is I've had enough interactions with him that I know he understands business.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'd rather not say anything.
all right. I'll leave it at that.
All I can say is that he's also waiting for their economic study. So
All right.
they'll have the facts. So I know he knows that is coming. And I think most of them are not even really thinking about this issue till they actually know what the numbers say.
All right, that's understandable, actually, but
But yeah,
Just don't know if it
Mayor
works out
Stovall's a
with the
reasonable
timetable.
person. He's a reasonable person. He's experienced with business. And so I have to assume that as soon as he gets the actual numbers, that he's gonna be able to understand the value.
and reason it out,
Yeah, reason it out.
yeah.
Danny?
Excuse me?
Do you have any other things to say?
So I
Carla?
guess, oh, sorry.
I talk too much.
I was just gonna say, so on both contracts, meetings and schedules are happening every week now. I mean, it's a constant thing going on, just so you'll know that we are doing things as fast as we can to get moving forward on these things.
Danny?
I would just like to make a comment that there aren't any decisions being made in the dark of night. This is happening in public meetings, and from being involved in the process this year and seeing the process 10 years ago, this is a completely different process.
Yeah.
Is there information, once we get things together, is the city going to be putting out anything to the public about decisions that are being made and why,
Council.
that's not what I'm trying to say.
Well, they are already. I mean, we've got the 2 articles in the Outlook. I have an article coming out in the Champion, the main article in the Champion is coming out. And I had Jeffrey and Jordan and Mayor Lauer all saw my article before I finalized it, so that they were aware of what I was saying. So you'll see it really soon. It should be coming out anytime now. I'm thinking, a couple weeks.
So
I
it's,
haven't seen the final yet.
so then it's posted in the paper, which means it'll be online.
Yes,
Is there any other way that people are able to see that?
the article. It will be on Facebook and it will be online, our website. And it does get mailed to everybody's home.
It does, okay.
Yeah, don't you guys see it in your mailbox?
Here, we get it.
Okay, it should. We create enough copies of them.
Danny?
Is all of this, like these articles fact checked and stuff before they
When I say 42 seconds on average, that's a fact. I pulled it directly from the city of Gresham's fire department's numbers provided to us.
It's not the one I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah, well, I don't think they fact checked it. And I'll leave it at that.
Jordan, do you have any comments?
All good here for now.
Jeffrey?
I'm good. Did you guys hear me?
No,
No, we didn't, but we hear you now.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Paul?
I'm good, thanks.
Frank?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
I bet Paul would have that fact checked real fast.
He's on it.
Definitely.
Nothing gets by Paul.
Okay, with that, if we can move to 7, it's set next meeting. So if I look at the calendar,
March. No.
that would be November 25th. Is that Thanksgiving week?
Monday night?
Yeah. Does that work for everybody?
Good here.
Sold.
Okay.
Jeffrey, does that work for you?
I'll make it work.
Okay.
Right, November 25th, 6:30,
Yep.
great, it's a deal.
Okay, and I will be in favor of a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn for this evening.
Second. Second.
Oh, who was faster that time?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.